First of all, let me welcome all of you to a wonderful 60th anniversary celebration for Lou and Sally Schroyer. It's hard to believe I'm actually saying 60th anniversary, but I am, and you are all should be so proud to have reached this milestone in your lives and in your marriage. It's truly a blessing. We're going to open the few remarks tonight with a blessing. We had a debate on the way over here about whether the assistant rector of their church was Rector Cope or Priest Cope or Reverend Cope or Pastor Cope, but she tells me it's fine just to say, this is Jan Cope. So, thank you very much, Jan.
Would you all please pray with me? Gracious God, we give you thanks for this day. We give you thanks for the opportunity to gather, to celebrate as family and friends of Lou and Sally on this very special day in their lives. We give you thanks for the love that they share with one another, with each one of us, and with all with whom they come in contact. It's a great, great gift. We ask that you bless and keep them. Make your face to shine upon them. Sustain, guide, and be with them and with each one of us as we marvel at the wonderful example they make for each one of us. And we ask all these things in your blessed and holy name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Jan. Appreciate that. I probably should have told you, I'm Whit Ayres. I am Sally Ayres Schroyer, little baby brother. And that's the reason I'm up here tonight. We have several people who'd like to say something, but I would like to open the floor at any point after this to anybody who'd like to say anything. Seems to me after 60 years, you all should have some stories about Lou and Sally, and anybody who'd like to share anything is free and welcome to do so. They tell me that they trust everyone in here enough in their discretion that's not true, says Lou. Okay, to be able to open the floor to anyone who'd like to say anything. But I'd like to first recognize Bill Leedy. Bill was in the wedding, believe it or not, 60 years ago. He has kept contact with Lou and Sally for these many years. I remember him, frankly, from the 50th anniversary 10 years ago, where he gave a wonderful toast and some wonderful stories. So please welcome Bill Leedy.
I hope I don't foul that part of it out. Well, it's a joy to be here, and I thought I'd like to reminisce with you a little about the occasion 60 years ago. I met Lou in 1946 when he came back to Washington and Lee. I remember the night so well. He arrived in uniform as an Air Force officer. The thing that impressed me the most was the enthusiasm with which the old boys, that is, those who had been in the fraternity house before the war, greeted him. And it didn't take me very long to understand why. Lou has, as you know, a magnetic personality and a great ability to relate to the guys who were older as well as to those of us who were high school students while he was flying in Berkeley. Sally, we met, and John Bowles and I are trying to remember whether it was Brian Bell or John Warner that brought her over to the Beta House for the first time. But they did a wonderful thing, and although Lou was always rather reticent and so careful with his money, it was hard to get him out on a date. But Sally was able to change all of that, and it was their good fortune to come to Ames, Iowa on August 7th of 1948 to have their marriage solemnized. And Fred Benson was an usher. Brian Bell was an usher. And I think Bill Richards was supposed to be, but he couldn't come. And, you know, in those days you didn't have the telephone as freely used as today. And so Lou wrote me a letter, because I lived in Jefferson City that isn't more than 150 miles from Ames, and asked me if I could furnish an additional usher. And I did. My good friend Bert Bates and the two of us started out. Well, we had a little problem, we thought. In those far-off days, Iowa was just as dry as a bone. And I can tell you that my friend Bates would not have been able to discharge his responsibilities as he would like to if he hadn't had the advantage of a little scotch. So we lined it up before we left Missouri and arrived there. Well, that was the most unnecessary thing we did. Sally's father and stepmother were so gracious and so hospitable. And Mr. Ayres was the son of the Old South, a Mississippian, and he was prepared for guests. And we just had a wonderful time, a beautiful rehearsal dinner, and then afterwards I can tell you the three topics that we discussed. The St. Louis Cardinals, Lou's parents and his brother-in-law and sister had driven out to Ames in a Jeep. They had had quite a trip. And then finally, we had a lot of discussion about the presidential campaign that was just beginning. As you well recall, was Dewey and Truman, and trustworthy opinion was divided in our group. Lou in those days was quite a Republican. And I ought to footnote and tell you that that set me down the wrong path. He's not really a Republican. He is anti-administration. Whoever's president, Lou is bad about something that they've done. I suppose that when Eisenhower was elected, that he would be so enthusiastic. Well, as you may recall, President Eisenhower vetoed a couple of pay bills, and that's all it took for Lou to become militantly anti-administration. It was a beautiful wedding the next day, glorious August day in Iowa, where it wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold, a beautiful bride and a great groom, and we all had a wonderful time. Sally and Lou joined what Whit said. We toast you, we salute you, and the love that you've had for each other, for your family, and all of our fine friends who are gathered here. We are so impressed and so happy to be a part of it. Here's to you.
You added some words to what I wrote for you.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for those wonderful reminiscences about my father. I remember that a long time. It was a great memory, great memory.